And there we have it. Welcome into KC Sports tonight. Marleah Campbell here with Gabe Swartz. Gabe, welcome. This is not your first time on KC Sports tonight, but it's our first time together. Excited to do the show with you.
Yeah, I'm pumped up.
Lots to talk about today, and we are going to start with what you see on your screen right there. Chiefs training camp, another hot one in St. Joe today. Yesterday we hit a little bit over 2 hours, maybe 2 1/4. Today just under 2 hours, both of them in full pads, both of them extremely, extremely hot in St. Joe. Hard to believe, though, we are now 9 days away from the Chiefs' first preseason game of the season in Jacksonville. So we're jumping ahead a little bit of ourselves, but I'm just excited because this is the last weekend in a long time, barring the last weekend of August, that we're not going to have Chiefs football. So, Gabe,
and
curious.
it's the first, tonight's the first night of preseason football. I know it's a
Yeah.
Hall of Fame game and it's all backups
I'll take
and stuff.
it. I'll take what I can get.
I'll turn it on for a quarter tonight at some point.
Seriously, I will take that. Okay, so let's talk real quick. I just kind of want your, preseason games. You take what you can get. We're going to see the starters, for maybe a series or two, and then we're going to see the younger guys, the guys on the bubble, the guys fighting to make the 53, fighting for starting positions. Maybe a takeaway or two that you're looking at for preseason game number 1.
Well, I think that what Steve Spagnuolo talked about earlier this week of just mentioning that there's been some moments of not everything looking great for Felix Anudike-Uzomah. I think that that's really interesting because a lot of Chiefs fans were sold last year on it's a redshirt year. He was one of the youngest first-round picks in the 2023 class, and so coming back this year, you would expect that he'd maybe be able to step into a bigger role, hopefully step into a bigger role because Charles Omenihu's recovering from a torn ACL. The rest of the defensive line, for the most part, is the same group as last year. And if he's able to take a step forward, it would be really big. If not, you're just expecting. I mean, George Karlaftis took a big step forward in year 2, and you're hoping for him to take another leap in year 3. But at some point, the plan that the Chiefs front office laid out a couple years ago when they drafted him, you would hope is coming to fruition. I don't know if it is or not, and I think that speaking of that August 10th preseason game, that's kind of what you're looking for is when they go down to Jacksonville, is Felix doing anything? I know he had the one tackle for loss in the Super Bowl that had people a little bit pumped up, but for the most part, there just weren't a lot of moments for him in his first year as a Chief. But there didn't need to be, and now there kind of does need to be some of that momentum and positive shift. And then I know that we'll talk a little bit about the wide receivers as well, because that's going to be something that people are paying attention to a lot. I'm interested to see maybe what different outlook the Chiefs take compared to last year, where they took 7 wide receivers on the opening roster. And I think this year could be different.
Yeah. We're going to get to receivers in just a second. I want to add one more note on Felix that you mentioned. I think you hit it on the head, which last year was kind of treated like a redshirt year. You heard that thrown around a lot, and we kind of said, okay, I think a lot of us could cope with that or understand, especially looking at the guys ahead of him. This season is really an opportunity for him to step up, and he's had some issues early on in training camp. Steve Spagnuolo said he struggled a bit early on. He's improving every day. But he certainly hasn't made that massive, okay, that's the guy that we wanted here in Kansas City. He's on his way to becoming that, but this is going to be a really crucial couple of weeks for him to show in these preseason games, I am the guy for this job. As you mentioned, big tackle for loss in the Super Bowl, stepping in, getting more reps than usual for Charles Omenihu, who, of course, tore his ACL in the AFC Championship game. But going to be a big camp for him, and he's taking it really seriously. I mean, he was on the podium a couple of days ago, and he kept saying, I'm not thinking about last season is over. I am focused on proving myself to this staff this camp. So big couple weeks for him. Excited to see how he does. And, of course, a lot of us around here rooting for him, local guy. Lisa, I'm a high school grad, K-State grad. So hoping that pans out. But Let's move on to choose your wide receiver. This, I think, is really this and the next topic we're going to get to, the battle for the left tackle starting job, are the most interesting storylines of camp to me. So looking at the guys that the Chiefs have right now, to me, your locks are obvious. Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice are 1, 2, 3. Not necessarily in that order, but you have 1, 2, 3 guys there. Then Justin Watson is kind of close behind, but a lock at number 4. He's a proven guy. He knows this offense. He's made connections with Patrick Mahomes. He makes big plays. He's not your number 1 receiver, but he's certainly in that mix. I put a little bit of an asterisk next to that because we don't know about a potential suspension coming down the line for Rashee Rice, given the offseason situation that he got into. So after that group of 4, though, things really open up. We have a lot of guys. Gabe, you hinted at this. I don't think they're going to keep 7 receivers either. It'll be interesting where special teams factor in with the new kickoff rule. Obviously, that's a bigger emphasis this year, but your thought on after... Well, first of all, I want to know if you agree with me on those top 4 guys. Yeah. And then I'm more curious at your second tier of guys. Who makes this roster?
I really think that 4 that you mentioned is pretty safe. Yeah. I also think that because the legal situation with Rashee Rice doesn't have an endpoint before the season, it kind of seems like the NFL might just let it play out this year and let him play the season out.
Which could come down at any time. Like, there's no... I mean, you look at past situations, I mean, you can't really compare, but the NFL just come out of nowhere and kind of drop these. So you have to be prepared.
Yeah. And I don't know necessarily. Last year they had a weirder situation in terms of the preseason of Amir Smith-Marset was so good in the preseason that they cut him or they traded him because they just didn't have room for him. And I don't know if anybody on this roster will do well enough in like if, for example, Sky Moore played well enough that you could trade him. I honestly think that would be the desired outcome because I don't think there's going to be room for him on the roster. I also think that McCole Hardman is kind of a soft lock at 5 because he had the big Super Bowl, knows the system. They trusted him to come in halfway through the year last year when things weren't going well and kind of
brings that veteran
be a little bit of a Band-Aid.
Yeah,
so I think he's there, and then it really just comes down to I don't think they're rostering 7 guys, and so it becomes Nico versus Justin Ross versus Kadarius Toney versus Sky Moore for one spot. And maybe the lack of running back depth, they didn't add a ton this offseason other than Lewis Reese-Zammit, which I don't know how much they're going to rely on him to pick up the game at a Super Bowl level in his first year. Maybe they can stash him on the practice squad. But I think that Kadarius Toney could be in that flex range where they just trust the talent enough. And I think that they could get away with Justin Ross being moved back to the practice squad or Nico being moved back to the practice squad again. I know that he's been kind of a special teams darling. He was one of the best punt returners in college football when he was at Fresno State.
And he's having a great camp.
Yeah. So, and there always seems like there's one of those training camp darlings like Darius Fountain, those types of guys where everybody really likes them. And then at the end of the day, if you put them on the roster as a 7th receiver, they don't necessarily do a ton. It kind of just muddies the wide receiver picture for Mahomes in terms of him building trust with people. But yeah, I think that we are quickly approaching the final days of the Sky Moore hopes in Kansas City. And it just never really worked out. But I could also see an NFL team, if he is able to have any bit of connection with Carson Wentz in the preseason, maybe he gets picked up in a trade for a late round pick.
Sure. Okay, so I know who's the first off your list in that kind of bubble group of receivers. If I put you on the spot, who's the guy as of today, given we have 3 preseason games to see these guys in live action, who are you keeping?
I would keep Kadarius Toney.
Okay.
He's still the most talented, and I know that the drops have been a thing, but he's explosive with the ball in his hands, and if you could just provide him the role that he had in 2023 or 2022, when he joined the team halfway through the season, and you don't go into the year thinking, oh, this is our wide receiver 1. If you go into the year with him as wide receiver 6 as his expectation, I think it's a lot more palatable for the Chiefs.
Yeah. Tony is such like a polarizing figure, I think, in Chiefs Kingdom.
Yeah. And
even within the team, I mean, you hear all of the coaches saying he's one of the most athletic guys on our roster, if not the most athletic guy on our roster. That's backed by him being a former first-round pick. We've seen the explosiveness he has. Take 2 Super Bowls ago, that return that essentially set the Chiefs up for the game-winning field goal. However, I don't want to harp on him too much, but I'll set up that little praise just to get into my next segment here, which is had a tough year last year. I mean, he spent 19 out of 21 weeks on the injured list. Kind of a weird situation at the end of the year with him saying he's not injured, going his Instagram live, I think it was. That was just kind of a weird sidebar disaster going on the week of the Super Bowl. And then he already picked up another injury this week.
That's what makes it tough is the ankle injury from earlier this week. And just but we've seen the limited reps of Justin Ross. We've seen the limited reps of Sky Moore, and there's been that's why I think regardless of what happens, regardless of who ends up being wide receiver 6 on this Chiefs team, Chiefs fans can be like, oh, we're doing it all over again. We're trying to talk ourselves into Sky Moore. We're trying to talk ourselves into Kadarius Toney. We're trying to talk ourselves into Justin Ross. It's different this year because they added Xavier Worthy. It's different this year because they added Hollywood Brown. And those are guys that are proven. And then Rashee Rice was really good in his first year. And I also think that what they added in the tight end room is a little bit more explosive with Jared Wiley in comparison to Blake Bell, with Irv Smith in comparison to the Blake Bell of the third spot, and then just another year of Noah Gray. So I think as a whole, the pass-catching group, regardless of the fact that we're having the same argument as last year of who should they add to the end of the wide receiver room, it's just a better group, and Chiefs fans can feel more comfortable about that.
I am going to give a somewhat hot take, just because this will be fun to clip if I'm right in a couple of weeks, and if I'm wrong, we'll never talk about it again. But I think Nico Remigio has a real shot at making this roster. One, because of the special teams ability that you highlighted earlier. Two, the Chiefs constantly talk about this guy is a true professional. I mean, he is like really on his money, student of the game, shows up, goes 100% every single day. Maybe I'm just biased because he's a Fresno State guy. I played the Mountain West, played basketball in the Mountain West, so there might be a tinge of that coming in too. But he's had a really, really good camp, getting first-team reps. I know the coaches are really impressed by him. So it kind of goes – I think if I have to pick my final two, I'm going between Kadarius Toney and Nico Remigio, and those guys bring like almost polar opposite things to the table. I mean, there's some overlap, but their benefits are, Kadarius Toney definitely has a higher athletic ceiling, but Remigio brings, consistency maybe. He seems to be getting more on the same page with Mahomes than Kadarius has been able to in the last year and a half. So yeah, that's my bold take is with the new kickoff rule and just with kind of the issues Toney has had between the drops and honestly the constantly being injury plagued. I think they might go with the Fresno State guy.
Yeah, I'm interested. I mean, I'll be out at camp tomorrow for the first time this year, and you've been out there a bit more than I have. I think that the split between running back and wide receiver is interesting just because that they're probably going to go with Pacheco, Clyde, and then probably Deneric Prince.
Yeah.
But I just don't know if they'll roster Reese Zammit or not because it's such an interesting
with the international player pathway program, not a tongue twister at all. They get an extra practice squad spot, I believe. So that helps him out.
Yeah. Hopefully
learning the game a little bit more too. Because we're 5 full padded practices into this year's camp. He's 5 full padded practices into football ever. So,
exactly.
Pretty big learning curve. He's doing a great job considering everything going on. One last note. I mean, we could do our entire show on this, but we are running out of time. On the wide receiver room, it is really fascinating to me because last year at camp, I promise you, if you ask anyone in the media tent there, and all we do is talk about different storylines. Sky Moore was the darling of that camp. We really thought he was going to have a breakout year too, and that went downhill pretty quickly. Kind of a disappointing season last year, struggling at camp, and there's just a lot of competition kind of in the mix, and the guys fighting for a roster spot in that room.
Yeah,
and you add in the offseason additions.
Yeah, I'm just excited to see what Hollywood Brown does.
Yeah,
because he's so proven.
Yeah, absolutely, and brings that deep ball threat that the Chiefs haven't really had these last couple seasons. Okay, I am forcing myself to move on to the next topic because I could talk about the receiver room forever. Okay, left tackle battle. Obviously, this is between the rookie, Kingsley Suamataia, almost nailed that, and second-year returner, Wanya Morris out of Oklahoma. This felt 50-50 coming into camp. Almost, obviously, you give the incumbent, I guess, the benefit of the doubt and assume that Morris has the job. Kingsley has been getting the first team reps consistently since full pads have been put on. You see that quote there from Andy Reid. I feel comfortable with both of them at this point. That was yesterday, 2 days ago.
Yes.
All of training camp truly blurs together. I've been up there all week.
Especially with it's just not a typical Monday through Friday. It's not a typical football season schedule or anything.
During the football season, Reid and Mahomes talk on Wednesday.
Yeah.
We get coordinators on this day. It is just all over the place. That said, we talked to Matt Nagy again today, and he said something kind of similar. He said the competition is fierce at this point. It's going to come down to consistency. These are both young guys. So at the podium, we're hearing that this competition is pretty even. On the field, when we're looking at reps, it looks like Kingsley has a job. I'm curious if you think the battle's been won or if it's still up in the air.
I think he has the job, and the only thing that could change it is you go to the preseason and something absurdly different than what they're expecting happens, because
drop the ball.
At this point he has still only competed against teammates. And he's a lot of, like you were talking about, 5 padded practices for the Chiefs. Like, that's all they have to go off of padded football at the NFL level for him. He's yet to do it in a game. He's yet to do it against live competition that's not just somebody else wearing an Arrowhead logo on their helmet. So I think that's what is one of the number one things to watch for on August 10th is how comfortable is he out there. I think the ceiling is clearly way higher than Wanya Morris. I can understand exactly why he would start on day one. I was talking earlier this week with Jared on the show, and we were discussing Joe Thuney coming back is so important, because if he's there, if Creed Humphrey's there, if Trey Smith's there, and Jawan Taylor's there, you just feel really comfortable with the group as a whole, to the point where you might as well go with the high upside person